Sesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga, glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namah Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Puchani Devi Sesa Sandhavadi Pasakita Desa Tarani Anjakopra Tibishcha Kripa Sindhuvya Evita Tanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So I was thinking today, since of course this is New Mayapur, I hadn't been in New Mayapur, but I was in Mayapur with Srila Prabhupada, so since this is New Mayapur, I thought I would talk somewhat about Srila Prabhupada in Mayapur. How many of you have been to Mayapur? Just about everyone. Very good. The first time I went with Srila Prabhupada in Mayapur, I stayed in the hut in the front of the property. You know, now that same place is there. We have 24-hour kirtan, and that was Prabhupada's residence in Mayapur. As I said, Prabhupada was comfortable wherever he was. Could be a chateau, could be a manor, could be a hut. In Vrindavan, he stayed in this old farmhouse. They just did some restoration on it. They just had we'll be having a program there. He stayed there in 1969 for 5 weeks. No facility at all inside the place. I'm not even sure there was electricity in there, to speak of water or bathroom or a kitchen. Nothing was there. But he was very comfortable. Chant his rounds there, gave class there to the few devotees that were there. And in Mayapur, same facility there was no facility, just thatched roof, hut, bamboo, slit bamboo walls. And I had to stay right there. There was just a little division made with a bamboo wall between what was his bedroom and the sitting room. And of course it was all very open. In Mayapur, lots of mosquitoes. That was the first time that I was with Prabhupada in the evening time. Of course, I talked about giving Srila Prabhupada a massage. In the daytime, that was one thing. He would be sitting in the room, gamsha on the straw mat. But in the evening time, he would take massage in the bed. So he would be sitting up in the bed. There was no oil. He sat up, and you would massage his back, massage his legs, and his lotus feet. And had to have a mosquito net everywhere in India. You had to have a mosquito net, whether it was Mayapur, Vrindavan, Juhu. So many mosquitoes were around. Even before you could get the mosquito net over the bed, already mosquitoes were inside the mosquito net. So many mosquitoes were there. So that was the first time I was there in Mayapur, and I'm massaging his back, and I was seeing mosquitoes buzzing around inside the net, and one landed on his back. And I'm looking at it right there on his shoulder, and that. Prabhupada said, "That's okay, they're attacking." He quoted Manu Samhita. He went to Shastra. He said, "If you're being attacked, you have the right to defend yourself." He said, so then I became very aggressive. I was massaging. But sitting there, because there was no other place. There was no other place in all of Mayapur. He had his secretary, his Sanskrit editor, myself. And of course, whenever Prabhupada went anywhere, the devotees came. And he was sitting in his room. Outside his room, could hear devotees talking. And he rang his bell. Went in, offered obeisances. He said, tell them to be quiet. He said, all they do is gossip. Prabhupada didn't say prajalpa. He said gossip. He said, all they do is gossip. He said, tell them it's gossip. He said, very bad. Tell them to be quiet. He's telling me, I was his little devotee, his little servant. He's telling me these people were GBC, temple presidents. So of course I went out and I told them. That was 1973. A year later when I went, the Lotus building was there. It wasn't finished, but it was there. Of course, Prabhupada's room, they did everything they could to make his rooms as complete as possible. And if you've been there, then you've seen Srila Prabhupada's room. He has a sitting room and his bedroom. And down at the end of the hall was bathrooms. And the way it was set up, they were all guest rooms. So the bathroom was the size of any one of the sitting rooms. So at the end there was a bathroom, there was 4 toilet stalls and 4 sinks and 4 showers like that. But when Prabhupada was there, of course, the whole thing was for him. So that was his bathroom. It was festival time. So many, many devotees are there and they're filling up all the rooms. Prabhupada had his 2 rooms. There's 2 other rooms on that side. And then there's a total of 4 rooms on one side of the stairs, 4 rooms on the other side of the stairs. So devotees are in all the rooms, all the different rooms. So one afternoon he rings the bell. You know, when devotees would get together, it was from all over the world. Coming from America, coming from Europe, coming from England. So many different places were there. And especially the leaders, they all knew one another. So one day he calls me in, one afternoon. Tell them to be quiet. All they do is gossip. He said, this gossip is very bad. He said, this gossip will destroy your Krishna consciousness. He didn't say it stops it. Didn't say it slows it down. Destroys it. Kills it. This gossip. He said, tell them to be quiet. So they'd have to go. All these big devotees to him. And I didn't say it in the extreme way Prabhupada told me. I was so challenged. I said, Prabhupada said, be quiet. He can hear all of you talking. He doesn't want to hear you talking. At that time, one of his godbrothers, sannyasi godbrothers, he was coming to visit Prabhupada almost every day. His younger godbrother. And he had a temple, a mutt, down the road there in Mayapur. And he would come visit Prabhupada. So one afternoon, just after he left, Prabhupada rang the bell. I went in and I offered obeisances. He said, I don't want to see my godbrother. All he does is gossip. He says he comes here. Actually, he did something. Prabhupada got very upset. He didn't mention that to me, but I found out about it. Otherwise, he was in Prabhupada's room. Prabhupada with him, Prabhupada would sit behind his desk on his asana. And his godbrother, he would sit in front of the desk like we all did, like all of Prabhupada's disciples. When I saw him in Vrindavan, his godbrother came, Krishnadas Babaji. Many of you will be familiar with him, very famous, Akinchana Krishnadas Babaji. He was known, all we ever saw him do was chant Hare Krishna. When he would see us, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Whatever you said to him, Hare Krishna. Just chanted Hare Krishna. When Prabhupada saw him, he came to Vrindavan. Oh, Prabhupada jumped up out of his seat and they just hugged and embraced and laughed. That's all I ever saw them do, was laugh and hug one another. They'd speak in Bengali. Prabhupada was always so happy to see him. But this godbrother, I never saw that relationship there. So we all have different relationships, depending on who it's with. It's not the same for everyone. That was very apparent. But what had happened, when Prabhupada would come to Mayapur, it was Bhaktisiddhanta Road, and at that time, that was it, just like Vrindavan. There was nothing on either side of the road. No shops, no buildings, not anything. And they would come past the Chaitanya Mat, the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya. And Prabhupada would have the driver stop the car. And from the car, Prabhupada would offer his obeisances there at the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya. He didn't like to go in there, because right inside the gate was Samadhi, Pushpa Samadhi of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Prabhupada didn't like that. He said they made him a gatekeeper, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So he didn't care for that, what was going on there. So anyway, he would offer his obeisances and the car would go on. So his godbrother one day came in and he said, your godbrothers are criticizing you, that you don't come offer your respects, don't come and see your spiritual master there. Prabhupada slammed his hand. He had a picture of his Guru Maharaj on the desk. He said, I am always with my spiritual master. He said, I'm always with him. So when I went in, he said, I don't want to see him. All he does is gossip. He said, talk nonsense. Tells me this is going on in his temple. Devotees saying this, they're doing this, my disciples are doing like this, and in this place they're doing like this. He said, all he does is criticize, gossip. He said, I don't want to hear this gossip. He said, if he came in and he spoke about Lord Chaitanya's pastimes or he spoke philosophy, he said, I would be happy to sit with him. He kept saying gossip. All he does is gossip, criticize. He said, so when he comes, don't let him in. He's not talking about my godbrothers. He's talking about his sannyasi godbrother, telling me don't let him in. I said, yes, Prabhupada. Of course, the very next day, in the afternoon, he's coming up those stairs. Prabhupada's rooms were on the first floor. First floor, right? Second floor, whatever we say.
The temple was down, and then yeah.
Then there's two floors.
Two floors.
Second floor. He was on the second floor, his rooms. So I'm at the top of the stairs at the second floor. Well, besides serving, you're like the security guard. See, no one comes up to go to Prabhupada's rooms. So he comes up the stairs the afternoon. It's like 2 in the afternoon. He comes up the stairs. I'm here to see Swamiji. I said, oh, Prabhupada was resting, so it made it a little easier. I said, Prabhupada's resting. I said, so I'm here to see Maharaj. He said, whenever I come, I can come whenever I want to see him. I'm here to see him. And I said, well, he's resting. So just as I'm saying that, Prabhupada opens his bedroom door. And he's no shirt. He'd been resting. Got his dhoti's kind of all disarrayed and crumply. And he's fixing his dhoti. He opens the door and he sees his godbrother Maharaj. And he said, oh, Maharaj. He said, go sit down. He said, I'll be right there. And he walks into the bathroom. Walks down the end of the hall to the bathroom. And the both of us go into Prabhupada's sitting room and sit down. And I could know his godbrother. He was upset. This little Malecha Vaishnava sitting next to him, giving him orders. Imagine what he must have thought. And we're sitting there together, and finally Prabhupada comes back, opens the door, walks in, sits down behind his desk. And immediately his godbrother says, "Your servant here came to see you. He wouldn't let me in." Prabhupada looked at me. He said, "I told you whenever he comes, you let him into the room." Yes, Prabhupada. He said, "Okay, you can go." That was Prabhupada. He was going to give him his association and do whatever he could to direct the conversation. It was his godbrother. He didn't reject him, but he let me know his feelings. And it was his feelings. Didn't want to hear all this nonsense. Prabhupada never liked to hear criticism. Not of his disciples, anyone. All we wanted to hear glorification. Glorification of the Supreme Lord. Preaching activities. The GBC meetings had one purpose. How to push on the mission. That was the purpose of GBC meetings. Nothing else. How to increase the preaching activities. How to increase the book distribution. This was the business. This was our business. So that was Mayapur. And we would all sit. Bengali devotees at that time, they were already there. I remember different brahmacharis and all. And they would serve Prabhupada's entourage, myself, secretary, Sanskrit editor, Bhavananda Chatpataka, they would be there at that time. So we would all line up for breakfast, lunch. He served prasadam. And Prabhupada liked to see what was going on when prasadam was being served. He liked to see what was being offered to his disciples, that they were getting nice prasadam. And prasadam in Mayapur at that time was very nice. And he would just walk back and forth, hand in his bead bag, and he'd just look, see what's there, what's being eaten. One time at lunch, a devotee, young brahmachari, Bengali brahmachari, was serving all of us, just a half a dozen or so of us. And Prabhupada's walking back and forth, and brahmachari served me something, and Prabhupada went by and he said something to him in Bengali, so I didn't know what he had said. Then Prabhupada went back the other way. I said, "What did Prabhupada say?" He said, "Oh, he told me to give you more chapatis." One time at breakfast, Prabhupada's walking back and forth. We're all having breakfast prasadam. Prabhupada walks. He doesn't see his Sanskrit editor. He said to me, "Where's Prajumna?" I said, "Oh, Prabhupada," I said, "he's in the room. He's chanting." He said, "Why are you taking prasadam?" I said, "Oh." I said, "Hey, well," he said he eating too much, and then he's sleeping. Can't stay awake, he's sleeping. Prabhupada's always telling us, sleep less. I told you the other day, Prabhupada told me, eat more. He's telling everyone, eat less, sleep less. This is Krishna consciousness. You decrease everything, bare minimum. This is what we hear over and over again as devotees. And bare necessities, simple living, high thinking, decrease, always decreasing, and increasing our Krishna consciousness, increasing our service. So he had read somewhere, of course he was very well read, Jumna had read somewhere, and he was literally just would soak almonds overnight, and you blanch them in the morning. You eat 6 almonds. You eat 6 almonds or so, a little milk, and that can sustain you. So he thought he was going to do that. He didn't want to eat too much and sleep too much. So I told Prabhupada. So Prabhupada goes right to the room where 3 of us were staying in that room next to Prabhupada's sitting room. He goes in the room and he sees him sitting in the corner, all his books around him. He had lots of books, Sanskrit books, Bengali books. Prabhupada said, what are you doing? No, Prabhupada, I'm not taking prasadam. So what do you mean you're not taking prasadam? He said, you have to take prasadam. He said, well, Prabhupada, if I take prasadam, he said, then I sleep too much. He said, sleep 10 hours if you have to. He said, you have to take prasadam. How are you going to survive if you don't take prasadam? Come, take prasadam. So this was always our dilemma with Srila Prabhupada, trying to follow his instructions. Which instructions to follow? Now I see, at this age, at least for me, little eating is there. I can't eat what I used to eat. Last night, we had a nice program. I only had 3 slices of pizza. I could have eaten 10 slices of pizza back in those days, but now I could only have 3 slices and I was full, over full. So it happens automatically. You don't have to be artificial. Like Krishna consciousness, nothing's artificial. Everything comes, you have to use your intelligence and your common sense. Prabhupada said, Krishna consciousness is common sense. And if you don't have any, find someone who does. That was his message. Find someone who does. Of course, if you don't have any, sometimes it's difficult to understand who has common sense. That was Prabhupada in Mayapur. And then one day, one afternoon, Prabhupada's giving darshan in his room. I told you in India, Prabhupada gave lots of darshan to his disciples. And that was our pleasure. That was their only pleasure. Otherwise, you're battling malaria, you're battling dysentery, you're battling jaundice. So many things. So he gave himself all the time. So he's in his room and he's speaking. Half a dozen or more devotees are in his room, his disciples, and Prabhupada's speaking. And I had to go, because he had no running water in the bathroom, so I would have to bring buckets of water, put them in the bathroom for his use, whenever he needed to use the bathroom and the sink, everything, his Sruta was there. So I have a bucket in my hand and I open up the door, the main door of the bathroom section. And I open up the door and there's a cobra inside. Big cobra. So of course, I drop the bucket, I run out of the room. Cobra. And the first person I see was Bhavananda. So I didn't want to go and make a scene in Prabhupada's room. I thought I'd figure out how to deal with this, a cobra in Prabhupada's bathroom. So I see Bhavananda, so I tell him, trying to do everything in a calm way. Of course, I picked the wrong person. So he goes right in, opens Prabhupada, says, Prabhupada, there's a cobra in your bathroom. Everybody's, cobras, we're all afraid of cobras. So then everybody gets up. Prabhupada gets up from behind his seat. And we're all out on the veranda. Cobra in the bathroom. Of course, no one's going to open that bathroom door. Right on the other side, who knows? And everyone can't even imagine what they're thinking, what the size of this cobra is. It was maybe 6 foot long or so. And we called one of the, we had Kshatriyas there. Now this was 1974, so by this time, many of the temples were aware you had to have security in the temples because people were coming to temples, the USA and Europe and India, and creating difficulties, attacking devotees. So we had one Kshatriya there, his name was Rasaparayana. Him and his brother, they were both there, big, tall devotees. And they took that role. So we called him. In the meantime, everybody's just outside talking. Prabhupada, he's standing on the veranda, he's just chanting on his beads. At one point he looked around, he said, one cobra, so many devotees. For one cobra. For him it was a common thing. So then Rasaparayan, he had a knife. He had a knife in his hand and he opens up the door, Don't see any cobra. And he opens up one bathroom door, toilet door. Opens up the next one, there's the cobra. And it starts slithering down the pipe. And I could hardly see. None of us wanted to go very close to this cobra, or didn't know what he was going to do. And he's like, hacking away at this cobra. Anyway, so he killed it. And he comes out. And we all go back into Prabhupada's room, and Bob and Anand are talking. Where did this cobra come from? It's up on the second floor. I didn't climb the stairs. So then all the speculation started. And the devotees in Mayapur, they're very good at we were talking about that yesterday. If you want drama, you go to Mayapur. Everything, so much drama was there. I was put by the communists. Some of the communists, the communists close by there. One of them planted it. And one of them said, it's come from one of the Gaudiya Math temples. One of Prabhupada's godbrothers, they planted it there, to try to attack Srila Prabhupada. Of course, later we figured out it just slithered up the pipe. Whatever it smelt or saw or did, who knows. But we figured it wasn't any conspiracy going on. It was just a cobra going up and it went up to the pipe. So then we're sitting in Prabhupada's room, and sun's going down. And we hear this sound. Prabhupada's talking, as he did every day there with his disciples. He's talking. And we hear this sound. We didn't think anything of it. Prabhupada said, you hear that? Yes, Prabhupada. He said, that's the snake bird. If you read your Bhagavatam, you'll hear about the snake bird. Prabhupada's telling us. Snake gets old, it grows wings. That's why it's called snake bird. And he said, the cobra. He said the cobra has its mate. They have their mate, the cobras. If you kill one of them, he said, the cobra, the mate, in their eyes, they have like a photograph of the person that killed their mate. He said, and they'll spend the rest of their lives going after that person to attack them and fight them. Of course, we're all sitting there. You have to understand Prabhupada's sense of humor. He's getting everyone all agitated, everyone all frightened. He's like the grandfather. The grandfather talking to their grandchildren, just putting a little fear. He's putting fear into everyone, talking about this cobra, the snake bird, and the snake with the vision of the person that killed their maid. And everyone was sitting there listening to Prabhupada. Because every word he said was the absolute truth. That's all we knew. If he says it, that's it. It's a fact. Anyway, then that darshan completed. So Prabhupada has his hot milk, has a little prasadam. I'm in his room. Now I'm in his bedroom, under the mosquito net. Now in the Lotus building, very nice room. That was my favorite time of the day. Giving Prabhupada evening massage. No lights are on, whatever light's coming from the sun and the moon and the stars is there. Outside lights, but his room is quiet, darkish. No one ever walked into Prabhupada's room. Barely anyone walked into his room during the day, unless they were called for it. But nighttime, no question, anyone went into his bedroom. So for his servant, It's the most blissful time. At least for me, it was the most blissful time because you're just alone with him. And even with the mosquitoes, made it more blissful because you're not sitting or kneeling on the floor giving him massage. You have to climb into his bed. So you're in bed with him. You're sitting in the bed on the side of the bed, and he's kind of a little bit on it, and you're massaging his legs, massaging his feet. So it's like you're in a tent, camping out with Prabhupada, it's giving him massage. So I'm massaging his legs. And he said, so? Continuing the story, he said, so? Everyone is concerned? He said about the cobra. He made us concerned, telling us all these stories about the cobra. Everyone is concerned? He said, you're concerned? I said, no, Prabhupada. He said, others? I said, oh, he was drawing it out of me. He had to draw out of me what was going on, what I saw, but wasn't even registering in my head. Others concerned? I said, oh, Prabhupada. I said, in our room, it was myself, Prajumna, and one other devotee. We're all in that room. We all just slept on the floor. We didn't have beds, mattresses. If you had your chadar, you put your chadar under you. If you were fortunate enough to have a 5 rupee straw mat, you put that under you. Your chadar was your blanket if it was a little chilly out. Your arm was your pillow under your head. That was our life, day after day, month after month. I said, oh, Prabhupada, I said, Prajumna, I said, we put out our sleeping bags. And Prajumna, he put his right in the middle. So if this cobra came, he'd be protected by us. Prabhupada started laughing. He said, oh, very intelligent. He said, very intelligent. Then he said, we're not bothered. He said, any cobra. He said, if Krishna wants, he quoted, right? Krishna wants to save you, he said, no one can kill you. And if Krishna wants to kill you, he said, no one can save you. He said, but we're not worried. And then he told me a story. My godbrother, he told me when here locally in the village, he said, one family, they had made some offense to one of the local Brahmins. And the Brahmin cursed them that their youngest child would be bitten by a cobra and die. The baby would die. He said, so they all lived just in little one-room huts, mud huts, cow dung hut, thatched roof, like that. It was simple. And the whole family would stay in the one room. He said, and they all surrounded the baby to protect the baby. He said, but they were all sleeping at night. He said, and of course the cobra came in, around everybody sleeping, and bit the baby. So he told me that story. So that was my report. Prabhupada, I said, I have my own theory about Srila Prabhupada. Being with him a long time and watching him, he was very amused by us, by his disciples. He loved us all very much, his Western Vaishnavas, his Western Vaishnava disciples. But sometimes he was laughing under his breath. He would look at us and just... Once he called me in his room in Los Angeles, came and offered obeisances. It was always Juhu, so many problems. The property in Juhu, the land in Juhu. Caught so much anxiety for so many trying to keep it for Srila Prabhupada. He never would let it go. Once he installed Radharasa Bahari, soon as he purchased the land, what did he do? installed the deity there. Once you install the deity on a property in India, that pretty much nothing else can happen. You might be in the court for 150 years fighting about it. But once you got that land, it's very difficult to get anyone off the land. I've heard now there's over 1 million cases in India in the court system. Our land, Goshala land in Vrindavan's been under legal writings court for 40 years. 40 years. In the meantime, you occupy the land, but you pay. You have to pay. You have to pay your tax regularly. You have to pay lawyers regularly. The court system regularly as battle goes on. So yeah, there in Juhu, there was one devotee. He was a very prominent devotee here in France. Prabhupada was staying in Juhu at the time. Fight was going on. His disciples, they were ready to surrender the land. Prabhupada said, even my disciples were prepared to give up the land. He said, but I promised Shri Radha Rasa Bahari, you come here on this land, I promise to build you a beautiful temple. But even the disciples, they will become so weary trying to fight this Mr. Nair, fight the courts. They said, let's buy some other property. Yeah, we have money, let's just buy some property. This was Western mentality. Let it go. Prabhupada, I told you about the guns. Prabhupada didn't let anything go. No. Krishna was there. So this devotee, he had come from France. This was 1974. So many had come before, they would have to go to the courts every day and file paperwork and get lawyers and do this and do that. And they'd just be weary. And this devotee, he just came, this grahasta, all had his nice pressed. I remember the first day he came into Juhu, went up into Prabhupada's room, dressed like Prabhu there, everything pressed very nicely, his white silk cloth, everything, did his dandavats in front of Srila Prabhupada. I'll take care of it, Srila Prabhupada, don't worry. I'll take care of it. I was sitting off on the side. I had seen over 1.5 years, 2 years of this going on, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah. We'll see. Quietly on the side. I remember every day we'd come in and make his report. First day he came in, nice shiny shaved head, nice bright tilak, white cloth. Every day everything got more and more gray as he came in to make his report to Prabhupada. Beard's growing, his hair is growing, his clothes discolored, his face is discolored. No one could do it. Only Prabhupada could take care of the situation. So I was saying that because in Los Angeles, this is going on different times. Prabhupada called me in his room one afternoon. I came in, offered obeisances, and he's just walking back and forth in his sitting room there. The sitting room and bedroom were connected in New York or Los Angeles, so he'd chant on his feet, walking back and forth. And he said, my disciples, he said, they've had so much illicit sex, so much intoxication. He said, if not for the chanting of Hare Krishna, he said they couldn't accomplish anything. That was his view, his Western disciples. Of course, my feeling was, only because of his chanting of Hare Krishna, even our chanting, what can we do? All our chanting we do. But it was his chanting, his desire, pushes everything on in Prabhupada's society. No different today. We can chant. We should. chant our rounds, follow the principles. But you always have to understand whatever we accomplish, it's only because of Srila Prabhupada's desires to spread Krishna consciousness out all around the world. It doesn't end because he left us physically back in 1977. Our expansion growing and growing. It's by his desire being fulfilled by Krishna. One evening, while this battle was going on, this Juhu battle, he's walking in his quarters. Los Angeles, the whole flat apartment was there. So we had a bedroom, had one sitting room, and there was another room. It was an alternate sitting room, which very rarely used. I would give a massage in that room when the weather wasn't nice because there was a skylight. The light would come in from the skylight. Prabhupada liked the sunlight in the morning, just like you're all sitting there in the sun. So morning sun gives you energy. Afternoon sun takes your energy. Morning sun, very good. So he's walking around through the bedroom, sitting room, and then through the hallway past his bathroom, and there was a servant's quarters. There was a door on the servant's quarters. You never closed that door. You never had sit in there and the door was closed, always open. He's walking around. He stopped in front of me. You could hear him chanting. It wasn't often you heard Prabhupada chanting japa. And you could even hear his beads in his bead bag. And he stopped right in front of the room, servant's quarters, and I'm sitting there on the floor. He said, when you're in anxiety, you chant very loudly. That's what he was doing. His anxiety was his Juhu property, not losing it, not wanting to lose his property for Radharasa Bahari. And he's looking at me. He said, even as a grahasta, he said, very easy to chant your 16 rounds. He said, you chant 4 rounds early in the morning, and then 4 rounds before each meal. He's talking 3 meals a day. Here, you have 3 meals a day. He said, you chant 4 rounds before each meal. And he said, and if you don't chant those 4 rounds, you can't eat that meal. He said, in this way, you'll get all your rounds finished. So he gave, because Grahasta was always so difficult. I work, I do this, I do that. It's so difficult getting my rounds finished. So Prabhupada gave the formula, how to get your rounds finished. Practical. Prabhupada was very practical. One day he's sitting behind his desk. Los Angeles. Los Angeles was very sweet. He would call me in his room sometimes just to say something for a minute. He was so fortunate to be there. He wanted to tell someone something, and you were the someone that was available. He would ring his bell. I went in the room, offer obeisances. When you offer obeisances, you look up, you can see his feet. Sometimes he would just have his feet out under the desk. You could see his lotus feet pointing out under the desk. I came in and offered obeisances and sat up. Prabhupada had his hand in his bead bag. He went like this. He said, now I have finished my 16 rounds. I can do any damn thing I want. He didn't say that on the Vyasa-san. He said it to me. Trying to say, finish your 16 rounds. Just get your rounds done. Then whatever you do, okay. Finish those 16 rounds. So that was Prabhupada, very sweet. Another day, rang the bell. I came in, offered obeisances. Sat up, he looked at me. He said, we're not so advanced. Meaning, you're not so advanced. He said, we're not so advanced. That we're thinking, I want to come back life after life and do service. He said, we should have the desire to go back home, back to Godhead. He said, that's our desire. Now, artificial say, I just want to come back and serve my spiritual master. That will come there, hopefully, someday. But first, you have to have a desire to leave this place. So he said, we're not so advanced, we think that. Huh? He said, we should have the desire, go back home, back to Godhead. And then he just turned, meant he was finished. Offered obeisances, went back to my room. Another day, rang the bell. I went in, offered obeisances, sat up. Was in the same spot right by us, but standing. He's looking out the window. He looked out the window often. He said to me, ultimately, you have to fly your own airplane. You all have heard this one. No one's there at the end. Now all this association, we have the deities, we have the devotees, God brothers, God sisters, whoever. But when the time of death comes, you have to be prepared. Everything we do is to prepare us for that time. Imagine we have our struggles now. So many difficulties we think make it difficult to follow, rise in the morning, chant. The time of death, very difficult time. He says if you're not prepared while you're living, what to speak of when that time comes. In Vrindavan, Krishna Balaram Mandir, we get to see it often nowadays. God brothers, God sisters, others leaving. You get to see sometimes their final days, sometimes final weeks, sometimes years. Vrindavan's an interesting place. Living there is so difficult. Sometimes dying there is equally as difficult. That one God brother, he was there. He had chronic respiratory difficulties. He had given up all hope, all the different medicines and things, bottles of oxygen, so many things he was doing. Yes, his energy could hardly walk a few steps sometimes worse, sometimes better. So I figured he'd come to Vrindavan. We want to die in Vrindavan. Yeah, that's one of our goals, die in Vrindavan. When Srila Prabhupada fell ill, 1967, 1974, finally what did he do? He went to Vrindavan. He went to Vrindavan to leave his body. So this devotee, one of many, came to Vrindavan. He thought maybe a few weeks. He was there for 2 years. 2 more years. But that's also Krishna's arrangement. Purify us. I've seen that as well. Sometimes devotees go through great suffering in their final months, weeks, years, whatever it may be. But that purification is there so that we can actually, at the time of death, go back home, back to Godhead. Such a special. We're very, very fortunate. We're all very fortunate to be connected to Srila Prabhupada, his society. Last night we were talking about it at the table. Everything we do, every flyer we make, has to have it. Founder Acharya A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. On the top, ISKCON, ISKCON New Mayapur, ISKCON Mayapur, ISKCON Los Angeles. All those things have to be there. Personal. You said that. Prabhupada came for impersonalism, voidism. It's us. We're the impersonalists. We're the voidists. He went to Los Angeles, ISKCON Press, back in the 60s, where they would do all the printing of Prabhupada's books. They had their own press, ISKCON Press. So it was getting so big. Los Angeles, New York was a wonderful community. They had 7 different apartment complexes, 70 apartments they had in Los Angeles. Back in the 70s, still they're there, occupied by devotees. So in ISKCON Press and all the artists, they all moved to Los Angeles. So many nice buildings were there. And they had the BBT building right at the corner, the temple, Watsika Avenue, 3764 Watsika Avenue, it's the temple address. And on the corner, Venice Boulevard, Main Strip, Venice Boulevard. And right there, by the corner, BBT, Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. Prabhupada made that, Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, because no matter what happened to the temples, Bhaktivedanta Book Trust would be there. Yeah. His books could always be printed. His books would always be distributed. And the manager of BBT, he was very happy when Prabhupada came. They had a nice shiny sign out there, Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. And Prabhupada walked from his room, it was just across the street. Saw a pretty building they owned and showed Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. Prabhupada looked at him. He said, "Where's my name?" A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. He said, "Where's my name?" Everything we do, it's for him. And he's the owner. Everything in ISKCON. No one else is owning. We don't have any ownership here. Everything owned by Srila Prabhupada. And we're all his servants. Not that he just had a personal servant, 10, 12, 15 over the years. Everyone, all Prabhupada's personal servants. And your business is to serve him. Personal, not impersonal. We're serving him personally through his representatives, whatever it may be, temple presidents, GPC, zonal supervisor, so many different. We're all the same. In Los Angeles, world headquarters, 1973. Kitchen, beautiful kitchen, way back then. All stainless steel pots, stainless steel, big commercial sinks, everything commercial, stoves, ovens. Very beautiful, first class. Prabhupada went in there one afternoon because wherever he went, he wanted to see. This is his place for Krishna, for serving the lordships. Everything for the lordship serving. So he went in there to see in the kitchen. Temple president, the GBC. That time it was the GBC of, I think, the whole USA. GBC of the whole USA. Lived there in Los Angeles. So they took Prabhupada on a tour. The kitchen, New Dwarka. Beautiful. As soon as Prabhupada walked in, he looked at the sinks. Pots were in the sink. Dirty pots from the cooking. They hadn't been cleaned. Prabhupada looked right at them. Temple President, GBC. Why are there dirty pots in the sink? In the deity's sink. Radharani's kitchen. He said, why are there dirty pots in there? Well, very quickly, Prabhupada, at 4 o'clock, the devotee will come in to clean the pots. They should be cleaned now. Well, there's no one at this time to clean them. You clean them. He pointed to the GBC. You clean them. He didn't see GBCs. He didn't see temple presidents. He saw his disciples. Just reading, I know it so many times. I've said it and know it. Discipline comes from the word disciple, he said. Where disciple comes from the word discipline. He said, you clean them. They shouldn't be like that. He had them crying. Big GBC man in tears, crying. Who do you think you are? No one here to do it. Sometimes he was walking, or he did it in Honolulu, happened in Miami, walking around. 2 acres of beautiful land. Leaves all over the ground. Prabhupada's there walking. There's like 20 devotees all surrounding them. Why is it so dirty? He said, all the neighbors, Hawaii, they're all Asians, Japanese. Every blade of grass is growing just so perfectly. You've seen Japanese garden, everything manicured. Our temple, big mess. He said, everyone in the neighborhood beautiful. He said, why is this like this? Temple president said, well, Prabhupada, there's not enough people. Prabhupada looked, he's got 20 devotees around him. Of course, they didn't live in the temple. Oh, they're Prabhupada's devotees, they're his disciples. Prabhupada just looked, just shook his head. No one to do it. Everyone waiting for someone else to do it. Not my job. Not my job. In the U.S. we would have that saying, not my job. Not my job. Prabhupada said, all of your jobs. In Mayapur, we started out talking about Mayapur. 6 o'clock in the morning, Prabhupada's coming down for a morning walk. He sees floors not swept, little things lying here, lying there as he goes down by the temple area. Why is it dirty? So why isn't it clean? Well, Prabhupada, it's japa time. He said, clean it. Anyway, that was Prabhupada. How he taught us. Everyone. What was one of his, so many phrases. One of them, do the needful. One of the things, do the needful. And don't wait for someone else to do it. Not my job, not my service. Everything is your service. Prabhupada was his service. When he came in New York, he did everything. He cooked, he offered, he distributed to the devotees. Everything. And he continued, prepared to do everything at any time. In the beginning, he would stand in line in the bathroom, waiting his turn, until finally his disciples realized, no, this is not the right way to do things. When he had his trunk in the very beginning days, his Bhagavad Gita manuscripts, this thick, and he had a few of them on top of the trunk. Ayagriva came in. And Prabhupada said that, I have these manuscripts. It was just like a dozen pages. He said, I need, he said, I want to print Bhagavad Gita. I need everything, what do you call it? Going over, it's edited, everything edited. Ayagriva said, oh, Prabhupada, I can do it. He volunteered. That's what we do, volunteer. Love means voluntary, not forced. Never forced. It means voluntary. Ayagriva said, oh, I can do it. He's seeing a dozen pages. Prabhupada said, oh, very good. Then he reached into the trunk and pulled out a stack of pages this big, plopped them on. He said, here you go. You can edit all this. But that's the thing. We're here, we're volunteers. But you become disciple. It's a discipline. Once you become disciple, then you're saying voluntarily, I'll do whatever you want me to do. And that you should understand what needs to be done. So, we'll have class again this evening. I think maybe the last one, maybe tomorrow morning, definitely the last one. Okay. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada. Ki Jai. Thank you. Hari Bol.